You're right on time because Orange Juice in the Kitchen is about to get started. We're your hosts. I'm Annie Graff.
And I'm Maggie Jensen. Pull up a chair because the OJ is flowing and it's about to get juicy.
We're getting deep in our convos about sobriety and mental health because that's how we've both found deep love for ourselves and the lives we live.
And when you love yourself in your life, there's nothing to escape. This is the real on how vibrant and colorful alcohol freedom feels. So grab your glass.
Cheers, besties. Let's chat. Okay, we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it because I just got this message from somebody who's been interested in the sober experiment, and I wanted to bring it to the podcast. Hi, you guys. It's your girl, Annie.
And Maggie's here. I'm so excited for this, too. It's such a needed conversation.
Yeah, and we haven't chatted about it before just hitting record, so we wanted to bring it to you guys because it's something that both Maggie and I have felt, and we understand the feeling of wanting to or feeling like just it's not the right time. I'm gonna read this DM to you guys real quick, and you guys can let me know if you relate to it because I think most of us probably can. And not even just in sobriety, but I want you guys to think of like where in your life have you had this thought of, I want to make this change, but XYZ. So here's the message I received from somebody where we've been chatting about her being a part of the sober experiment. She's been very interested for a while now, and we got to chatting, and she sent me this message saying, hey, Annie, I'm really interested in the next round of the sober experiment, but I'm just kind of at a loss because I have a lot of things coming up in the next few months. What do you think? And first off, when I read this message, I'm like, girl, I get it. I get it completely because how many times in contemplating sobriety was I like, well, I have my birthday coming up. Like, can't be sober for that. Oh, I have a wedding, an open bar. Can't be sober for that. I have a concert coming up. Can't be sober for that. Like, all these things and events in our life that we have always incorporated alcohol into, that when they're in our futures, it feels like, well, now is not the right time. I don't know, Maggie, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, I just have so many like heartstrings being pulled the same way as you are experiencing. Like I can see so many times in my past when it was like, oh yeah, I really want to be different and to do different, but it's October and freaking Halloween. Like, how am I not going to drink on Halloween? Or, during the summer, oh, how am I not going to drink on 4th of July? For me, it was always like the holidays. And doesn't it mean that like celebrating has to be drinking? And so because my mental state was always planning around, oh, well, I have to be drinking these days and I have to be able to party and be party girl Maggie this time of year, that left me to kind of only schedule in attempts at sobriety when the timing was quote unquote perfect, which first of all, there really never is. But I think that's why a lot of people really like dry January. And that's why I think I got the kind of the semblance of some sort of confidence to try dry January because there weren't any holidays to like have to maneuver around.
Yeah.
But then in that
like holidayed out, you're like,
yeah, you're like done with the holidays. You're like, I can't take it anymore. But it's almost like, sitting on the sidelines and trying to do different. But then in the back of my mind, I had the idea that, oh, well, when the holidays do come back around, I'll be fixed. So It was like, I would try if the schedule aligned. But then as soon as anything popped up that I was conditioned to believe like I wanted to celebrate in, it was like, oh, all caution to the wind. Now I can go back to old me.
Yeah.
And it's wild to think about, but it's also really common. And I think one of the biggest barriers is, oh, well, my life is going to continue and I've got all these plans. How am I going to possibly be going through those plans as a new version of me doing different?
Yeah. And, I think of like, all of the times in my life where I've wanted to change something, and not just sobriety, kind of like what I said in the beginning, but like when I wanted to leave the military, leave a relationship, start a new business, start prepping again for a bodybuilding show, cut down, a lifestyle cut, start a new workout program, commit to a goal, a challenge, a thing that required different of me. So all of those things would require me to show up different in my day-to-day life, that it feels like hard to then be committed to these other things, these new goals that are like not staples in our life yet, but we want them to be. We want that to be kind of like where we're going. But it's like, oh my God, well, I've already committed this current version of myself to these, future plans. I don't think Prep Annie would fit into going to a wedding where there's a buffet and an open bar. I don't think newly single Annie would be able to go to this concert with this old group of friends that is affiliated with who would then be my ex. Like, oh, I have a wedding dress hanging in my closet. There's no way I could, leave this relationship right now. And it's so true that we put things off and put improvement off in our life because we think these events are like limiting for us. But it's crazy because we like live our life for those events. And this is kind of what I responded to her saying. I said, you will always have life events. I completely get where you're coming from, but if you wait until you don't, you'll never do the work that you could be doing during those events. I promise you. I did tell her too, like we've had people get married, be bridesmaids, go on vacation, celebrate graduation, have birthdays, all the things you could think of while going through TSE. And every single one of those, and Maggie can vouch for this, every single person that's had like a monumental life event come up where they originally thought would be a barrier to their sobriety or like was tied to their old relationship with alcohol, every single person went through that event being like, holy shit, I'm so glad I didn't put off this journey with TSE because of being a bridesmaid, because now I'm a bridesmaid and I'm tackling my own inner work. I'm tackling my relationship with alcohol. I'm able to be at an event knowing that I have community support, helps, tips, tricks, like communication with people who are on the same journey as me. And I'm in this event and my mind is clear. My relationships are better. My self-love is better. My confidence is improved. My brain clarity, my memory is better. I'm here. I'm present at this event that I've been looking forward to. And alcohol isn't a barrier to me enjoying it. It's actually allowing me to enjoy it more, this diving into this new version of myself. And I think it's so beautiful, but I completely understand because I used to think, and this is so funny, when I first started my sobriety journey, my birthday is May 31st. So I, similar to Maggie, started my sobriety journey on January 1st, 2023. So a few years after Maggie. And, I originally, my biggest thing for me was like, I wanted to go 6 months. That's kind of like where I had my heart set at first. I thought everything would be cured by then, but my birthday is May 31st. That's five full months of the year. And I literally remember having this conversation with a friend and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be going like 6 months. And I was in prep for a bodybuilding show. And I was like, but I've always done something big for my birthday. It's been a weekend long bender every year. It's Memorial Day weekend usually. So it's like, that was the only way I knew to celebrate my birthday. And so even though as I got closer to my birthday, like, week 1, week 2, week 4, 6, 8, probably in those early weeks more so than later, because I'll explain why. But in those early weeks, I remember having a conversation with a friend where I told her like, well, if I have a few like shots, like I'm sure it'll be fine. Like if I by then I'll probably have a good handle on it that it won't really impact me. And if I go into that, my birthday, knowing like, yeah, I'm going to drink, it's fine. It's just a one day thing. It won't be like, I'll still go the rest of the one more month and that'll be fine. And it's so crazy because I had so much fear around holding on to sobriety while my birthday coming up. The crazy thing is like my birthday came up. I didn't do anything crazy. I had the most low key birthday, and it was probably one of my more enjoyable birthday weekends ever. And pretty much once I passed like the 12-week, 4-month mark, I had no desire. Like it was like this new me was there, and it's like I knew how to enjoy myself, my time, feel good, at peace, not chasing chaos, all these things we kind of talk about all the time. That the idea of having an alcohol-free birthday, it was like the last thing on my mind. And I don't know, I just think we do that so often to ourselves, where we hold ourselves back from the change that we want to make because current us can't see. It's like this intangible idea of who we'll be to arrive at that event in a different way. But if you put off the change you're wanting to make for that event, guess what? That event's going to come up. You're going to be the same. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, now I'll start my sobriety. Well, guess what? In 2 weeks, you're going to have a concert. And in another month, you're going to have another wedding. And then in 2 more weeks, you're going to have a celebration of sorts. And then you're going to have a funeral or grief or loss or something else in life that is going on, that if you constantly tie alcohol to all of these things in life, that's exactly how you get 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. And all of a sudden you're like, seriously though, where is life gone? And why did I never make these changes I wanted to make?
Right. And then all of those amazing life milestones, like the weddings, the graduations, the holidays with families, all of those that could have been freaking magnificent, you look back on them with shame and guilt and remorse, whatever that kind of emotional carryover is that you bring around with you when you continue to drink the same way or live the same way. And the alternative is like, okay, facing that fear and going into those endeavors with the support and with the mental tools to like get the most out of it. Like you were saying, you're present, you have clarity, you're able to track the memories, you're able to have good conversations. I think back to like, your conversation like with your grandma that you would have never had. And so that's kind of kicking it back to a really old episode, but all of those things that would have been looking back on it with shame or guilt, then that can be replaced with, wow, pride, accomplishment, a sense of like, I got good feelings from that. So all of your energy and all of the way that you show up starts to change. But I want to go back and I want to ask you a question. Candid, you kind of went through it, but in your own words, like when you're talking about the fear that you had around your birthday last year, in the very few weeks, what were you afraid of? What were you afraid of when you said, if I don't drink?
Yeah. I think my biggest fear was that I didn't know how to celebrate without being drunk. I didn't know, or not even just with drunk, but just without including alcohol. I didn't know how to enjoy myself. Like everything that I had tied to enjoyment was often linked to alcohol, and sometimes like not purposefully, but it was like the things I looked forward to on the weekend, maybe a concert, maybe a friend get together, maybe, a birthday party. All of those things also happen to include alcohol. And while I was excited for those events, I was also excited to let loose and de-stress and kind of avoid the traditional day-to-day things going on in life. And it was just a habit for me that I had formed in repeated action, that joy came from, yes, these events, but when every single one of those events also include alcohol, that also, by accident, by habit, whatever it is, meant that joy was coming from alcohol. And that's where I found my joy, right? And that's where I escaped, and that's where I celebrated, and that's where I grieved, and that's where I numbed. And that's where I was doing all of my, you look at both sides of emotions, ups and downs, alcohol is a part of it. So I think for me, it was like, wow, if I want to celebrate myself and another year on this planet, for me, birthdays have always been a big deal. So I've always like really liked the idea of celebrating my birthday and planning something for my birthday. That the idea of planning something for my birthday, but being the one to not consume alcohol felt like, what would be the point? Like, and that is so hard for me to even like kind of connect with now, because I don't feel that way at all. And the reality of where I get my enjoyment is so different now that it's like, it's crazy for me to think about. But that was really just how I saw enjoyment. That's how I saw fun. That's how I saw celebrating. That's how I saw letting loose. And it all required alcohol.
And I think that's a really common area where people feel that fear taking over and stopping them from ever trying anything, because, you know, we talk about this all the time. You'll always choose the familiar hell over the unfamiliar heaven. The fear of the unknown is so incredibly powerful and overwhelming that I think that's the main thing that people can say, oh yeah, I would love to wake up hangover free. I would love to learn how to have fun without alcohol. But when they start to really imagine that and contemplate it, especially around celebratory times or even in those really hard grief moments, they start to say, well, it's unknowns. It's all unknown variables. How am I going to de-stress? How am I going to feel excited? What on earth would I even be interested in? And it's like you judge yourself from your drinking identity of who you would be in your sober identity. And you don't even know, but you say that version of me will be lame. That version of me will be boring. And I will never be able to go on trips. I will never be able to go celebrate things. But like for you, what was that shift between the first few weeks? I'm sorry, turning this into an interview. I just think it's really powerful when we can like reflect on it.
Yeah.
You know, like what was the shift between the first few weeks with the fear, and then you said by the end it had completely like dissipated and you were ready for your birthday.
Yeah.
The end of the 6 months, I guess.
Yeah.
What was that like really shifted for you?
Yeah. Well, pause even before I touch on that. I think you were saying something and it made me realize like I was getting so much like confirmation bias that drunk Annie was socially acceptable. Annie was the fun one, was exciting, was the, like, she was celebrated by the people she was spending time with. I was always like the social creator, like, you know, putting events together, creating, like bringing people together. Then I'm like tipsy and I'm like talking to people. I'm social. I'm asking questions. I'm making jokes. I'm like, didn't care. I'm like, you know, which the crazy thing is like, while that was such an accepted and loved and celebrated version of myself, I literally don't remember, like, so much. People would say, oh my God, you did that. It was hilarious. Or, oh my God, I love like when you're this type of way or whatever. I would never remember doing a lot of these things or making that joke or saying that thing or talking to that person or going over and doing that crazy thing, whatever it was. I wouldn't remember. So part of me felt like, oh my God, I guess I can only be like socially acceptable when I'm this version of myself, because now sober me, which tended to be the lower, anxious, overthinking, brain fogged version of me, I didn't know who the fuck that was. It felt like a completely different person that I was like, oh my God, I can't even like meet these people's expectations if I'm not drinking, because what would drunkie say right now? I don't know, what's the funny thing? Like, oh my God, I'm like thinking about what my hair looks like. And like, does this outfit look good? And oh, did that person just make a face at me? Like when alcohol wasn't a part of the equation, I didn't feel confident in this other version of myself. And the reality is looking back, it's just because I wasn't spending time in that sober version of myself. And when I was, it was in anxiety. It was in the low moments. It was in the regretful moments, the overthinking, the embarrassed moments, the shameful moments, the, oh my God, I did that. Can we just never remember that? Can we just delete those photos? Can we pretend that never happened? And that was the version of sober Annie I was spending a lot of time in. So I just wanted to escape that. And because the drunk version of me was so celebrated, I wanted to get back there. So then cue in the alcohol again to bring me back there, to make me feel loved, celebrated, appreciated, and encouraged by the people I was spending time with. Now, it's crazy too, because in diving into sobriety and gaining more confidence in this one singular authentic version of me, my relationships have skyrocketed because I have confidence in myself. Like, there's no two versions of Annie. There's just me. It's just me, who I am. I know who I am. I've done the work to figure that out. I'm very aware. And my conversations are better. My genuine relationships, my authentic ability to show up for friendships is so much improved. And the way people have now been appreciative and acknowledging of this version of me, it means so much more, right? Because it feels really authentic. It's like, yeah, that is me. Wow. And these people like me. One thing is like, no, I don't get my confirmation, or I don't need that acceptance, but it's kind of like, hey, like, this is a quick, tap on the back, a quick little reinforcer, keep going, keep doing what you're doing, because this version of me is so well accepted and acknowledged and loved and appreciated. It feels so aligned, rather than being accepted and celebrated in that drunk version of me that I didn't know who that was. I didn't know how to tap into that without using alcohol, and then having no memory and doing all these things that were so not aligned with me deep down. I don't know if you feel that.
Yeah. And something that came through for me was the emphasis on confidence and the lack thereof back when we were drinking. And it just becomes so clear that, well, maybe it becomes clear for me. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You tell me if this lands for you, but it becomes really clear for me that it wasn't so much about the alcohol, but about the confidence that it gave me, because I just thought I was an insecure person and that was permanent. That, well, because I'm shy, because I'm really insecure, and because I'm not confident in social situations, I have to use alcohol. But it's so true that I was measuring that to the version of me that was, 3 or 4 days sober in between drinking events, where I was feeling anxiety. So worry about who I am, what I'm doing, what do people think about me? Does anybody hate me because what I did when I was drinking, AKA the thing that gave me confidence was now making me second guess myself. So there's some cognitive dissonance there, right? And it's because I thought I was permanently insecure and I would always lack confidence, alcohol had to come first. And then it was okay, this recognition in my final successful sobriety stint, it was okay, so that version of me is not confident, but that's just because I was spending time with a very insecure version of myself and always leaning towards that confidence escape with alcohol. When I stopped leaning on that, yes, there were hard growing moments. Like you said, going to your first sober socializing event and wondering, why did that person make a face at me? I wonder if they wonder what I'm drinking. What does my hair look like? Am I talking about stupid things? There is that mental chatter, but it starts to drown out, fade out into the darkness. And then you start to have your own self-trust and confidence come in, and you start to learn, I can actually become confident when I'm not consistently self-inducing anxiety and depression with alcohol, the thing that I thought was helping me not be sad and anxious.
Yeah.
And it's just that big growing moment of deciding okay, I know I've got these things on the agenda in the future, but if I want to show up confidently to them without the aftermath, maybe, just maybe, it's time to do something different. And I think that's what shifted for me in that early 2020 phase was I thought this was making me really confident, but I'm spending more time being insecure about my actions and then spun up in anxiety. So how do I learn that confidence? Oh, I learn a little bit about myself, and I learn how to be myself, and I learn how to be one version of me that's authentic. And I love that conversation that you've had with me, even off camera, of like realizing that you are yourself with every single friend group. And that's confidence.
Yeah. It's crazy because I actually kind of feel like I have an opposite perspective on what you started that conversation saying. And what I mean by that is that I feel that I've always been a pretty confident person. Like, I've never been somebody explained as shy or introverted or self-conscious, like never. And sure, do I have insecurities? Do I have things I know that are weaknesses? For sure. But I've always been able to show up privately and publicly as pretty confident. And, I'm really grateful for that. But it's funny because you hit the nail on the head when you said this. You're like, I was spending time, what I was using alcohol to create a confident version of myself was then also the cause for the next morning heavy lack of confidence. And when you spend a lot of time there, it disconnects you from this authentic you. So like what I really looking back on, what I was really experiencing was like before alcohol was kind of a huge staple in my life, which for me was probably from like 2017, 2018, kind of spike, up, hit ahead in like 2021 and 2022, 2020, 21, 22 were really ramping up, that I lost connection to the authentic, confident Annie. And it felt like even not in those like hungover moments. So like, let's say I'm drinking on a Thursday night and Friday morning, I have like a personal training client. And then I'm like in the gym myself around the fitness community, which always has been something I'm super confident and comfortable in. It was like, okay, confident me in my drinking environment. And then I wake up feeling like shit, hungover, tired, exhausted, brain fog, forgetting what happened last night. Who did I talk to? What did I say? What did I do? What do I have to be embarrassed about that I don't even know happened yet, And then I'm feeling that sort of way, but having to tap into this, non-drinking, confident person that is who I am, but I wasn't feeling it in that moment. So like, I'm putting on this mask of like, okay, and I'm your personal trainer, and I'm like living this lifestyle, and I'm like, yay, health. And like, I'm in the gym, I'm feeling great. Yay, do the good things for your body. Like, and it felt so fucking fake that I realized for me, it was that disconnection that really had me feeling like, bro, this ain't right. Like, I don't like this. And as much confidence as I have as the drunk version of me, I've always known that confidence is there. So like, why have I given myself this remedy for a problem that wasn't there that now makes me feel fake when I'm trying to show up authentically? Like, it was so disorienting, honestly.
Yeah.
It made me feel like I'm like, who am I? And it for so many years, because I was really living into that, it made me feel like, yeah, like, wow, do I not know myself? It had me questioning this authentic confidence that I've always had, this like love for life and love for socializing and love for that. Because without alcohol, I was like, oh, do I not like people? Do I not like talking? Do I not like myself? Like, that's never been the case. But for the last 5 years, it kind of has become more the case. So that was the biggest thing for me. And like, I think it's so interesting because if for people listening out there, like maybe alcohol is not your use, your like remedy for being shy and quiet and lacking self-confidence, maybe it's been something that you haven't even known that you've implemented into your life, that you were already confident, you were already self-assured, you're already, pretty, good in those areas, but then you add it in and it's become a staple that removing it feels like, ooh, wow, I don't know how to go back to the most authentic version of me. And so either way that you're coming at this from, one of us can relate, obviously, because we kind of have opposite experiences, which I think is cool. But yeah, I think it's so crazy the effect that alcohol can have on just your perception of self and your perception of who you are and like what you're capable of. And I think that's where that thought is kind of promoted, honestly, where it's like, whoa, I can't do these events without alcohol, or like, I don't know
who I would be in these events, in these environments without alcohol. And whether or not, you come as a confident person where alcohol made you boost your confidence through your perception, or you are a very shy, inhibited person where you lean on alcohol as that social crutch, well, you're still going to be fighting this feeling of, here I am. And I think you hit the nail on the head with this, is like, what if they knew the real me? That fear that kind of steals your confidence no matter which direction you're coming from. That just like gave me chills when you said that, because it helped me recall that there was always this idea of, would they like me if I were really me? And in that there came a question of like, who really am I? Which that journey builds confidence, self-confidence, not external confidence. And then if I'm really me, what would other people think about me? And then that helps you, like, that's scary as hell in the beginning. But as you start to work on that and you start to realize who you are and you start to be proud of who you are, so that anybody who gets to know you, when you start to do that work, then you can take the trips. You can go on the flights. You can go on the retreats. You can go to the, maybe the more emotionally heavy endeavors. You can go through grief and loss. And all of these are going to be, I would say, amplified experiences, which sounds oxymoronic with grief and loss. But, even our members, and ourselves included, that have gone through grief and loss in sobriety, we've been able to say, well, we come out quicker. We come out healthier. We process things faster. With the good times, we have better times. We have more memories. We have more celebratory vibes. Even if that celebration looks different, we're not taking shots at the bar to celebrate. We're doing other things, which, of course, in the beginning, you have no idea what that looks like. That fear of the unknown is really strong. But I guess kind of our message here today is to know that those things in the future, your mind is always going to use them as reasons not to do different, because it wants to stay in the current comfort zone. So get rid of that narrative that you can't start because of X, Y, and Z. Because if you get started now, yeah, you might have to juggle things time-wise. You might have to get more creative with your schedule. But if you get support now, then all of those things that you're looking forward to could be 10 times, 20 times, 50 times better. And whatever money you're investing in those trips, whatever time you're investing into these celebrations, you're going to get dividends on your return. You're going to see so much value return back to you in your increased life and your memories and your treasured way to look back on these things. It just becomes so much better. But again, it's all about fear, facing that fear of the unknown. And so I guess anyone listening that's like kind of eyeing starting different, doing different, but you're saying, this is on my schedule next month. I'm just thinking about all the things that the TSC experimenters have had, like a trip to London where they were doing networking functions. It was like the biggest week of deals that one of our first members had to, go on this trip and be signing deals and everything. And she was like, I was just so much better at it when I wasn't hungover. I had so much fun. I realized that these busy professionals don't drink the way that I used to drink. And like every single time one of our experimenters has gone on a trip or had one of these events in their life, they have never come back and been like, man, I wish I would have drank.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, even things like unwork related, but like, weddings. We've had people get married while going through TSC. We've had people be bridesmaids. We've had people go on long trips. We've had people have birthdays. We've had like celebrations, promotions, all the things. And I don't think a single time where an event's come through that someone had on their mind before committing to the program. I don't think there's been one time where someone's been like, damn, like this didn't help me at all. like not at all.
Goodness.
Yeah, like it's the opposite. It's wow. I didn't know how much joy I could get from getting married, going through my best friend's wedding, going on this trip, celebrating my birthday, sober. Like, and that's where I was at. And that kind of that transition mark you asked earlier, like what changed? And it was just the fact that I was spending more time in my most authentic self. I came to realize, like, again, and we talk about this all the time, is like, the way I wanted to spend my time was ever evolving. And I was choosing peace instead of chasing chaos. I was comfortable being at home in silence, and I found myself prioritizing other things like a solid night of sleep and an early morning and a workout and moving my body and water intake and getting, quality socializing, not just socializing for
party talk.
Yeah. And the surface level conversation, but being surrounded by people that I actually really truly wanted to cultivate a relationship with. And so anyway, it was just more time spent in that, and belief built while doing that, and confidence, found while doing it. So all of the things, and just with time and the work, we've said this before, but like time doesn't heal all necessarily. It's the work you do in that time. And so that's the beauty of, the sober experiment, is that the time's there and we're going to guide you on the work. So as long as you show up and lean in, I promise you, it's going to be worth it. Yeah. So anyway, that was today's topic. I'm so excited to chat with this girl more that had DM'd me, because it's so true. It's such a common hesitation to put things off, but your reminder today, you guys, if you have thought of putting anything off, not even just sobriety, whatever change you're trying to make in your life, in fitness, in relationships, in career, in friendships, in personal growth and development, whatever it is, stop putting it off. If you put it off for life, spoiler alert, life is going to continue. So you might not ever do the work if you're going to continue to put it off and build a habit in putting it off. So dive in, lean in. Let's go.
Let's go. One thing I just want to kind of end on too is like an experience that I had personally was putting off the work, and then really amazing opportunities coming up in my life towards the end of 2019. Where I said, I really want to do different, but I'm going to go to this party, to this function, to this thing. And there were a string of events where I woke up the next morning wishing that I had started the work, because this thing that I was so excited for, I ended up absolutely ruining for myself. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but I'm just trying to be real here that, like Annie said, life is going to continue. And if you don't do something different, then unfortunately, a lot of these things that we look forward to, we're going to continue the pattern of doing something to where the next day we're actually very insecure about. And we do not have confidence, though we did imbibe in our liquid confidence the night before. So I don't want you to spend another day being like old me, waking up saying, why didn't I start sooner? F my life. So here we are. Let us know questions, thoughts, if you want to apply, make sure you reach out. You can find us at Try the Sober Experiment on IG. Of course, it's Annie Graft and Magnify Maggie on IG as well. We're here sending you lots of love. Until next time.
Bye, guys.